Welcome to Season 3 of E-Commerce Fastlane, Episode 79.
Welcome to E-Commerce Fastlane, the podcast show to help you build, launch, grow, and scale a wildly successful e-commerce company. Listen to real conversations with proven practical strategies and success stories. Learn how to generate more traffic, more sales, more profit, and customer lifetime value for your Shopify store. And now, your host and e-commerce entrepreneur, Steve Hutt.
Thanks for listening in today. This episode is brought to you by Just Uno, an incredible Shopify app. Do you want your on-site lead capture to drive more revenue, delight shoppers, and convert more visitors? Then you have to check out Just Uno. They're an on-site visitor conversion platform that has been designed to help businesses like you collect more leads and take their customer journey to the next level. You want to learn even more? You should totally check out episode 21, where I've interviewed the co-founder and CEO, Eric Christensen, about how retailers can maximize their traffic and revenue and stop leaving money on the table. You know, getting the promotional strategy isn't always easy, and that's where Just Uno Plus comes in. You get exclusive access to AI-powered product recommendations, plus a dedicated conversion strategist for support and optimization. And for listeners looking to take their business to the next level, Just Uno is now offering 15% off exclusively for e-commerce Fastlane listeners. So go to justuno.com, use the coupon code Fastlane15. That will give you 15% off, and you can start optimizing your conversion rate today. So hey there, it's Steve, and welcome back to the E-Commerce Fastlane podcast. Now, if this is your first time listening, this is an e-commerce show where we have honest and transparent conversations about building and thriving with your store powered by Shopify or Shopify Plus. New episodes are available each week with your favorite podcast player through iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and Spotify. Or you can also sign up online at ecommercefastlane.com and be notified when a new show is being released. Now, my guest on today's episode is Robin H. Smith, and he is the CEO and the co-founder of a brand called VL Omni. And they're a data integration platform. Basically, it's built a cutting edge kind of a cloud microservice technology. And what it does is it helps scale multi-channel and e-commerce merchants essentially do a lot more with their data, including creating effective and unified customer experiences across all of the touch points. So we're going to dig into a lot of great topics as it relates to integrations, platform connectors, maybe some limitations that are in Shopify, but then the open API connections that we do have that then allows for some external solutions that you may have wanted or have currently connected to your Shopify store. This is where VL Omni kind of fits into that mix and really helps the Shopify and certainly Shopify Plus brands really grow and scale with external services. So let's jump into the show. So hi, Robin. Welcome to E-Commerce Fastlane.
Well, thank you for having me, Steve. This is a great honor and a great privilege to talk to the Shopify community. Very happy to be here.
Excellent. I'm so glad we synced our calendars, and we're now in the first quarter of 2020, and I think there's been a lot of strategic kind of business outcome-y type conversations that have been happening with the brands that I manage, and I just overall in the ecosystem, I can hear the buzz about things that they're working on and KPIs that are important to them. And some of them are finding apps, or they have legacy systems, or they're looking about adding on new systems to the existing Shopify platform. And I think that's where VL Omni really shines, especially with the Plus merchants. So maybe those that don't know who VL Omni is and what you're all about, can you talk about maybe what problem, I know it's kind of a loaded question, but what sort of problem are you solving for a lot of the Shopify brands?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. So the primary problem that we solve is integration. And if you think about integration, most people say, I want to move data from point A to point B without really thinking about A, how you're going to use that data and how that data intersects with your customer experience. The other problem that we're solving is channel visibility. In an omni multi-channel kind of world with disparate integrations, people are having difficulty really understanding what is going on in the individual channels. So through the platform dashboard, we bring together the channels that allow people to manage all their integrations on a single platform, but also have visibility into what is actually going on in those channels. I'm excited to announce on the podcast that we have an analytic component that we will begin to roll out at the end of Q1, which will give e-commerce manager 15 metrics across every channel. So these will be both individual channel metrics and aggregate channels, which is part of our commitment to help brands scale. That, in a nutshell, is really what we solve for.
I love the dashboard concept. Analytics is a topic that comes up significantly. Understanding the customer life cycle and then trying to put certain customers in certain buckets that are your best customers or that are at-risk customers or churned customers, and then understanding lifetime value and saying, wow, they made 2 purchases. How come not a third? Can we find more audiences like that? And that's kind of the marketing play. So it's very interesting that you've decided to roll this out, because I think having a single source of truth for all your connections and then having analytics as a roll up too, I think it's really powerful. I had no idea that was coming out. So kudos to you and the team engineering wise to roll this out. Excited to put that in the show notes when this is fully launched.
Yeah, no, for sure. And we are actually very excited about it. We're starting with 15 e-commerce metrics that every e-commerce manager looks at across all channels. And that's really where we're starting. And it's really to give visibility into what's actually going on. So it's which is a big challenge, because if you think of a omni multi-channel strategy, you're pulling orders and fulfillments and inventory and products across multiple channels, and see what's actually going on in one spot, I think provides a richer experience.
Let's chit-chat a bit about I call it the founder's journey, but, leading up to the launch of VL Omni, like what would you say, being the CEO of the company and probably having quite a bit of experience, what do you believe kind of uniquely positions you and the rest of the founding team? Number one, I guess, to have the desire to build this platform, and number two, the expertise to want to do it.
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. So VL was founded in January of 1994. So I hate to say it's 26 years. So we're not a startup, but we actually are a startup inside of a mature company. So we were one of the very first companies in Canada to offer integration in the EDI world. And there's actually lots of people out there who still use EDI. And when you go to the dentist and you submit a claim, on the back end, that transmission to the insurance company is done through EDI. When you go into a hospital and you're having a procedure, all of the transactions on the back end for procurement of either operating room information and so on and so forth is all done through EDI transactions. So we come out of bricks and mortar retail EDI, which is complex supply chains, compliance, and managing an information flow that from 1994 up until the peak of big box retail in, say, 2000, 2005, became ever more increasingly complicated, with more and more transactions being thrown in. So this actually gave us a really good foundation from an integration perspective to take a look at e-commerce and say, okay, our customers were asking us to get into this. These are, in its early days, e-commerce was incredibly simple. We were moving orders and inventory. Over the years, we've integrated to a whole variety of ERP platforms and WMS platforms. So ERPs like SAP, Microsoft AX, Navision, Texas Elite. I can go down the list. I think at one point we had done 40 different ERPs. And then various WMS packages, things like 3PL Central, Powerhouse from QSSI, and so on and so forth. So we have a tremendous depth of experience in integration across multiple verticals. So in our legacy EDI business, we've got customers in grocery, customers in hard goods, soft goods, logistics, pharmaceutical, healthcare. So this gave us some insights into how to architect integrations. And one of the interesting elements around EDI is that the business rules are encapsulated in the message when the message gets sent. And this is one of the beauties of EDI. It's one of the things that everybody complains about that makes it so complicated. So if you fast forward to the e-commerce world, the business rules are not encapsulated in the messaging. So what ends up happening is that people approach integration as strictly a technical exercise. I think the advantage that we bring is that we layer on the business expertise of, okay, how does the business actually operate? Because when the rubber hits the road in integration, it's all the business issues that rear their ugly head. And this is where integrations go sideways. So I think that's the value we bring to the table. The other value is that we've worked over the years with some extremely large companies. We worked for 10 years with Kuehn and Nagel, who were probably the largest freight forwarder in the world. In Canada, we work currently with the Weston Group. We look after the EDI for all of their brands. This allows us now to bring enterprise level expertise to the table that in the e-commerce world, a lot of people don't have.
I have noticed, and these integration questions come up quite a bit with the brands that I manage, and we talk about this, integrating with another piece of software that's necessary for the business to thrive. And I do find that, there are some plugins for some solutions in the Shopify App Store. Can we dig into a little bit of that about how Omni is positioning himself a little bit different than maybe just downloading an app to solve a very minor problem? Can we talk about overall data integration and why it might be different the way you approach it?
Yeah, no, and that's an excellent question, because I think that you have to look at the maturity of an organization, and as it scales, you've got to look at the needs from a data movement perspective. E-commerce, for sake of argument, is in its infancy. It's not a mature space. So the supply chains, although in some instances are mature, in others they are actually not. And often what we find is that the brands that come to the table, they're really looking for a very simplistic way of connecting applications, simply because integration is an afterthought. And that afterthought comes from the perception that I just want to move my data from point A to point B, which is great if your volumes are very small, if you're only going to use data in a single spot. The challenge becomes when you become an omni-channel or multi-channel business is that now you've got multiple applications in your in your application stack. So you may have your ERP, you may have your Shopify store, you may be selling on Amazon, maybe using Salesforce as your CRM, and you may have multiple logistics providers. If you don't designate a central point of truth for various pieces of information, if the ERP, for example, is not the central point of truth for the accounting information, or you're using a PIM for your product information, what ends up happening is people look for, well, how do I connect my Shopify to my NetSuite? Without thinking of the actual data that's being moved and how that impacts the customer experience. So the challenge here is to step back and, as a brand scales, to start to look at how do we implement a holistic strategy. Because what ends up happening with the plugins, which are quick and easy, you're being put into a lowest common denominator box, either as a freemium product or extremely cheap, is that you're changing your business practices to fit the way the developer built that plugin. And in a lot of businesses, as they scale, that may become cumbersome or kludgy. Or the other thing that we see is that an agency or the company will go out and find a freelance programmer to build a static integration between the two applications. And the problem with that approach, because that's a second approach, so you've got the plugins and now you've got the custom coded integration, is that integration is a snapshot in time. And it's a snapshot of the business and the way it operated at that particular time. So to be able now to go in and modify that and to change that as business practices change now becomes an engineering job to go and reprogram that. If it was done by a freelancer, you may not have the documentation. The freelancer may not be around. The person who built the software may not be, available. Maybe the agency's not around. I was talking to a customer the other day, or a potential customer, and one of the issues was that their agency went bankrupt. And now they were stuck with a site and an integration that nobody knew anything about. So this is where, as brands scale, they need to step back and they need to think about, it's not just how do I make these things talk to each other, but it's how do I want to use the data across my organization, and what strategy do I need to put in place so that I'm synchronized and I have the data in the spots that I need it when I need it. And this is where we come in, and as companies move up market, that we come in and we help companies design that strategy. We go through the application stack. We look at the touch points of what can be done, what can't be done, and make sure that there's a correct alignment there. And then you have organizations that have internal IT staff. And I hear this a lot where organizations, well, we've got programmers that can do it. And that's fine. But the question is, do they really know the applications? And are they looking at it, again, from the perspective of moving data from A to B, or are they looking at data holistically?
Yeah, and to add to that too, I deal with quite a few brands and merchants, and even directly through e-commerce Fastlane. And the question comes up quite a bit about their outsourced partner that has done some work, or I just got an email recently saying, hey, we're on Shopify Plus, and a lot of that IP was taken with the two people that have just left the company, and there's no communication now about where we're at and what sort of development things have been happening. And so I'm having these sorts of conversations now, instead of having a company like VL Omni that understands, being, I guess, almost like pausing and being intentional and thoughtful and thinking about the business outcomes and understanding the tech stack from Shopify versus these external, connections that we talk, ERP and, all these different sales channels and whatnot, PIM and all the things you brought up. It's quite interesting. And I think that's the challenge. I've had some brands that scripts that are written, through Shopify scripts, or their checkout.liquid, the checkout flow updates and things. Shopify then, every quarter, at least every 6 months, is doing a checkout upgrade. And so if we're allowing people to do checkout.liquid updates to improve the customer experience, and your developer's no longer going to be found, there's no GitHub, it sounds like if you do take a step back and understand and look at the connections that you do have or what you're thinking about for the future, it sounds like VL Omni can fit into that mold and really almost be a strategic advisor, so to speak, to actually help you.
That's exactly it. And that's the role that we play. Now, it's not to say that there's not a place for the plugin. Some plugins are quite sophisticated in what they do, but one needs to understand that to make a plugin work, you are really defining an integration approach, and you are making upfront assumptions on how people are going to use data. And I think what's really, really critical for the audience to understand is that those decisions that are made in that plugin may not necessarily be the ones that are right for your business. And therefore, you are being forced to change your business practices to fit that model. This was something we used to see in EDI all the time. Oh, the EDI is forcing me to change my business. No, the EDI is just a messaging system. What you need is a good translator to translate the data that you're getting into the business, into the ways that you want to do your business. So I would use the same parallel here. From a strategic advice perspective, the first thing we do is we dissect what people are actually doing. And then the next question is, okay, well, where do you want to go? You're scaling. Where do you want to go, and how do you think you're going to get there? Do you have the right applications and the right tools to be able to do that? Because in and of itself, integration, it really is a technical exercise. Being able to integrate at scale means that you're building redundancy, you're building error handling, you're building reconciliation processes. Like, for example, Shopify has a great function which a lot of e-commerce platforms don't have, and that's webhooks. But webhooks on high-volume sites, they're not always 100% reliable. So if your developer's using webhooks, they thought about building a reconciliation process to go back and to check that you actually got all the webhooks. So these are the kinds of things that people need to think about as they start to scale, because volume is great for business, but it also has all sorts of implications on how you run your business.
I find interesting, though, is that because you have opportunity to be able to talk to a lot of Shopify, and for sure Shopify Plus merchants, is there any issues or any kind of themes that you see time and time again when you, I guess, during the initial outreach and maybe potential onboarding? What are some of the themes that pop up that maybe we can share today?
Yeah, no, that's a phenomenal question, because it doesn't matter where you go in the world. We did a Shopify Plus event in Dubai in October of 2018, and we had a full day session on with some pretty profile merchants. And my business partner Scott came out of the meeting and he said, it's really refreshing to fly 3/4 of the way around the world and realize that people here have the same problems that people in North America have. We're not unique, that we all have the same issues. So two things, and I think that are the most important. One is integration is always an afterthought. Everybody is focused on, I got to get that front end site up. I'm going to spend all the money on the beautiful pictures and the content and everything else, without thinking about how those beautiful pictures are going to get into the Shopify site. And yeah, you can do a bulk load through the spreadsheet, and that's easy. But if you're doing an ongoing maintenance, where are those images going to reside? I mean, I had a site recently where they said, oh yeah, our images are on an FTP server. Yeah, well, that's not publicly accessible. So it's simple things like that, that integration now becomes this afterthought. And that because it's an afterthought and because people don't understand it, they fixate on what it costs. And this is where having a proper strategy of what you want to accomplish and what goes into it and what are the business implications, having a proper budget in place and making it a strategic part of your e-commerce planning, I think is really, really important. The other thing that we find is that people don't understand how important the quality of their data is when it comes to e-commerce. It's very easy to get data into a Shopify site through a whole variety of mechanisms as a one-time affair. If you are now moving data in an automated fashion, that data has to be clean coming out of its central points of truth. So one of the things that I always say to our customers, our potential customers, is that you are in an e-commerce world, in a digital world, you are trading on the quality and the validity of your data. If your data is not clean, then your customer experience is not going to be clean. And those are the two major things that we often see. Well, we see on every site.
Yeah, it's awesome advice. So you obviously deal with a lot of the plus merchants. It seems, you mentioned going upstream a bit and people that there's benefits in the plugins, but if you are truly in the mid-market to enterprise and you have a few potential legacy systems and or are looking for a new system, let's talk about how you work with the Plus community, because there is quite a vibrant community, both I think in the Facebook group and I think even through the forums. And there's quite a few podcasts, this one and a few others out there that are, strictly focused on that. So I'm curious to see how VL Omni gets visibility and offers some thought leadership and just overall how you believe you're helping these Plus brands.
Yeah, no, and that's a great question. So I will say that we do have Shopify sites. We don't do just Plus. We actually have a customer who is completely virtual who runs store number 600. So, yeah, store number 600
of 1 million. Yeah.
So we've been at it for a fair bit of time. How do we work? So we work with both agencies and technology partners. With technology partners, that's the easiest one because to begin with is that we look for edge cases where their canned integrations don't fit merchants' requirements. And it's those edge cases that allow us on our platform to shine. With agencies, it becomes a cooperative play. We like to be early in the sales cycle. We like to work with them to develop strategy to allow them to enhance what they're doing on the front end. A lot of agencies want to do integration. A lot of merchants look to the agencies to have integration in their product offering. But the reality is that it's not their core business. And we don't work with every agency, there's no question. There are agencies that don't want to work with us because they want total client control. They want to control the integration. Those that are more forward-thinking are bringing us to the table to help develop strategies. And typically those are the ones that are working with the larger brands and the scaling brands. So we work in partnership. We like to be early in the sales cycle so that the customer is sensitized and is aware of the approach and that we're addressing the technology requirements. Because I think that it's easy to custom code something in PHP, but how robust is that? How robust as something scales? I mean, we've got some customers that are in Shopify's top 1% volume-wise, and I couldn't imagine doing those with a custom coded integration. I mean, the volumes we get. I mean, we've got some sites that do Cyber Monday, Black Friday, between 50 and 100,000 orders a day. I mean, that's, you've got to have the robustness and scalability to be able to handle that.
So, Robin, since you have access to, and you are communicating with a lot of brands, can you talk about what you kind of see for the future for e-commerce? Are there any trends that are kind of bubbling up?
There's a couple actually that we see. One of the big ones. Before I get into this whole sort of conversation around headless, is internationalization. Internationalization is something that we're seeing more and more and more. And one of the things that this creates is language issues. and where translation data is coming from. So that's something for those that are thinking about internationalization. It's going to be a big issue in how you handle your translations and where you handle them and what's the point of truth for those translations. Obviously, there's, Steve, as you well know, there's all this hype cycle right now around headless. I wrote 3 blogs on architecting some of the back end around headless. Headless to me is probably for the 1% crowd, and the 99% are probably going to be quite happy, thank you very much, with Shopify's monolithic stack, which is great. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the monolithic stack, because the monolithic stack in many business situations, particularly Shopify, expands into areas that are non-North America, EU. Having everything in a monolithic stack makes 100% sense for when there's power reliability issues and there's internet reliability issues, because you've got all your products, you've got your price, you got your inventory. Where the challenge is with headless is that headless now requires you to have an even better understanding of your integration strategy. It's not about just simply, I'm going to find a plugin to connect this to that. That doesn't work in the headless world. So now your integration strategy is front and center. And if you read all the blogs that are out there, it's all about, APIs are so easy and blah, 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 and and it's like, it's the biggest crock that I've ever heard. Yeah, APIs facilitate data movement and they facilitate the applications to talk to each other, but you still have to have a strategy around how you're going to move data between the applications and what are you going to be moving. We recently architected a headless site for a customer, and one of the things that came out of that was the whole notion of, okay, where is your product data going to reside? Like the original product data that you're going to serve up in your CMS. What about inventory? How are you integrating the checkout? At what point is the handoff happening between the CMS and the checkout? And so it's all of these kind of questions that I think are becoming more and more. And for me, what headless accentuates and highlights is where e-commerce is going from a technical perspective, and it's the battle of the checkouts. Who owns the checkout, because that's where the money is going to be the one that is the strongest in e-commerce, and the flexibility and the power around the checkout is really where the future is.
I am going to put some links in the show notes about headless commerce. Maybe some of those listening today don't know what it is. So I think getting that education is important. I also have quite a few brands that I manage and lots that I know of that are using WordPress or Contentful as their front end CMS. And the reasons why they choose that sort of thing is more for their content strategy. They feel that for organic reach and discovery, that there's a nonstop production of content and there's significant almost blogging plugins and things in the WordPress world. I mean, 25% of the internet or more is running on WordPress. But Contentful has been screaming its way up, certainly in the e-commerce world, as being a great front-end solution to still allow the marketing team to produce at scale a lot of great content. It's discoverable, it's SEO friendly.
Yep.
But I totally agree with you that there are, and one brand in particular, I'll keep them nameless for now, that's running WordPress on the front end, Shopify on a subdomain, but they have mimicked, and this is where it gets a lot of challenges, they've now copied and mimicked the look and feel of the shop.theirbrand.com and then theirbrand.com. And they're even having to use a third-party search tool that's been custom coded to be able to, well, if I'm on thebrand.com and I'm searching for a product or content, I need to search 2 databases. I got to search the WordPress database and reveal some search queries and data, but I also need to potentially search for the products that are related to that. And having to grab data, that integration is very complicated.
Yeah, sure.
I agree with you. It's the 1%. I think it's a very leading edge technology right now. I also believe that there are brands that are running on Shopify, as you talk, the top 1%. A lot of them are connected to VL Omni that are doing massive volume in the hundreds of millions of dollars, and they're not doing headless, but they are using Shopify's checkout and they're doing fine.
Yeah, no, I would totally agree with you. I mean, I think whether you look at Contentful or you look at Ampliance or Mobify or any of these CMSs, really, it's about serving content up quickly. If on your back end you're clogging it up because you can't serve data up fast enough, then what's the use of going headless? I mean, to me, that's kind of dumb. But anyway, that's not the subject of this podcast. But
Okay, I'll make a slight pivot, but let's, this show, and I'm sure you can appreciate, I have a diverse range of listeners just kind of being on the web. If you were to give some advice for those that are listening today, that I guess I would categorize them more in the early stage. They probably still have a 9-to-5 job. They're not doing $100,000 a month yet. But they're hustling. They're doing their thing. What sort of advice would you give them?
Well, it's the same advice I'd give to any scaling brand as well. I mean, the first thing, everybody at the enterprise level has probably heard of the Gartner hype cycle. Beware of the hype cycle. Headless is a little bit of a hype cycle right now. I think that as the technology becomes more sophisticated, it'll be viable technology for certain types of merchants. But as you had mentioned, it's not for everybody. Or as I had said, I think it's for the top 1%. So, that would be the first thing. There's a lot of hype. For anybody, strategy is important. Understanding what you want to do from a technical perspective and how your brand DNA intersects with your technology is critical. Too often people put technology in for the sake of having technology, and it has direct impacts on the way the brand operates. I'm not going to name names, but my director of marketing ordered a winter coat over the holidays. Very poor communication in terms of the customer experience back. Product wasn't delivered on time, and follow-up, no interaction. I mean, that's a reflection of your brand DNA. Is that a reflection of what's going on the back end? More than likely. So very important to understand that. The other thing that I would be very skeptical of is somebody who comes to you and says they can do everything. I mean, we're subject matter experts. We only do integration. We never touch the front end. We've been asked many, many times, can you build me a site? No, it's not our business. We're not graphic designers.
Right.
That's not what we do. So I think that ERP vendors are notorious for this. They present themselves as that one-necked choke. And in reality, in today's world, the technology is too complex for everybody to know, for one outfit to know everything, or to be able to understand the ERP or to understand the implications of what you're trying to do. So I think I would be very skeptical of somebody who comes along and wants to do everything for you. One of the others, and this is one that comes up a tremendous amount on the logistics side, is the 3PL that says to you, we'll connect to your Shopify store and we'll pull all the orders. We see this all the time. Right away, what you've done is you've abdicated any operational control over those orders to your 3PL. Mm-hmm. So your 3PL is making decisions for you on what is going to be shipping. Maybe you don't want to ship. Maybe there's fraud. Maybe your fraud detection is not working properly. Do you want everything to go out? So looking at why people are recommending certain things, I think, is really, really important. And keep an open mind that, there are different approaches. There's no one right way to do everything.
What about those listening today that would be, I guess, more considered in the mid-market? So they would have a small team. They're eager to grow and scale. What should the executive team or the marketing team, what should they be working on?
Well, this is interesting because when you get into these bigger organizations, one of the things that you run into headlong like a train wreck is silos of ownership. So ownership of data. Who owns the product data? Is it marketing? Is it procurement? Who owns logistics? And often what happens is that you bring these teams together and everybody's busy protecting their turf. And that ends up creating all sorts of issues when it comes to e-commerce, because unfortunately what e-commerce does is it brings it all together. And if everybody's not on the same page, then you're going to have issues. So I would say for anybody in the C-suite that is looking seriously at e-commerce, you also got to step back and look at your organizational structure and make sure that you have the fluidity to be able to bring the right people together that have the authority to make things happen.
That's great feedback. So what does the future look like for VL Omnia? I'd love to hear if you can share maybe some highlights, potentially of your 2020 roadmap or any North Stars and things that you're working on today.
I mean, our platform is architected as a serverless environment. We don't run the traditional Windows-based servers or Microsoft-based servers. Our architecture is completely serverless on Amazon. We run data centers in Virginia and Montreal and in Ireland with the ability to roll out into, say, Germany or Dubai or Singapore or Sydney. We have full DR on our disaster recovery, on our implementations. And although we are a multi-tenant platform, we do have the ability to become single tenant for very, very large volume sites. So we have that flexibility to become a single tenant platform. Our roadmap really is to provide greater visibility. I think as brands scale and strategy becomes more important, we're starting to see this change in the marketplace right now, where brands are becoming much more in tune with how they're going to scale their e-commerce. Give it 2 or 3 years, I think we're going to see a complete change. It's going to become more complicated. Mm-hmm. It's going to require more strategic thinking. I think this is where we're going to position ourselves in terms of being able to work with merchants that are looking for the value add. Those that are looking for a plug-and-play solution, there will always be a market for those kind of guys. And those guys, they're going to be well served by the Shopify App Store. And that's the place they should go for those sorts of things, knowing full well that you're being put into a lowest common denominator. As the complexity changes, we will be there. Increased channel visibility. Visibility, I see, is becoming more and more of an issue. What's actually happening out there? Whether it's from a marketing, and that's not an area that we will get into because that's not our expertise, but really visibility within the channels. What is actually happening? Our products, when we load them up, are there SKU mismatches? Are there failures? How do I get to a place where my data is really clean? I think that's where we're going. There's a lot of opportunity out there. Integration is just still very young. We take a different approach from the A to B, from the point A to point B. We're a point to multi-point. So I have a Shopify order. Where do I want that order? Why can't I have it in my Salesforce CRM, in my ERP, in my Dynamics 365, Business Central or Finance and Operations, and to some other platform, all at the same time? Why do I have to do it as point A to point B, point A to point C, etc.? It should be done as a single process. And that's the value add, I think, for us.
So, Robin, we are nearing the end of the show for today. I joke almost every episode that I've written copious amount of notes. I have this life of learning mantra, and you being a subject matter expert and really, drilling down in these sorts of connections and integrations are part of your DNA. And I just thank you once again for coming on the show. Do you have any closing comments or any takeaways that you would like to leave with our listeners today?
I think there's a couple. One, as I've reiterated a couple of times in the course of the conversation we've been having, is that people need to think about data and not just the technical aspects of connecting Shopify to other applications. It really comes down to, as a brand scales, it's how do you intersect the customer experience, which is your brand DNA, with the data that you need. And this requires you to look at how you're going to tie all your applications together in a holistic manner. One of the challenges that we see as well is that people have antiquated technology stacks. So where there's been poor investment in the application infrastructure that they run the business on. And we often see a disconnect where people they'll sign up with Shopify and they want to do A, B, C, D, E, and F. And you start having a conversation, you realize that the applications they've got will only allow you to do A and B, and then they get mad at you, as if it's your fault. And sometimes part of that strategic looking at e-commerce is you've also got to step back and look at the applications that you're running internally. Maybe you need to have an ERP upgrade. Maybe you need to upgrade your infrastructure to be able to provide that customer experience. Because, Steve, as you well know, e-commerce customers are fickle. And I think the latest stat I've seen is you get a max of 5 chances before you irritate your customer enough that they'll never come back. Those are 2 things that I would recommend that customers do. And budget properly. If it's cheap, that's what you're going to get. Integration takes time.
Right.
It takes time to understand a business and understand what the business requirements are. And if you are looking for plug and play, that's perfect. Be mindful of the constraints. But I think that if you want to do it properly, you've got to make sure that you've got a proper budget for doing things correctly.
And so how can people learn more about, the products and the services that VL Omni offers?
So our website is vlomni.com, and we've got scads of resources up there. We've got webinars, we've got video recordings of presentations. Actually, I did one in London, England last year, which was talking about brand intersection data and leveraging Shopify. So that's a very good one. We have our Twitter feed, we've got our blog, we're on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. My marketing team publishes a lot of thought leadership and content, and I actually speak at a lot of conferences on e-commerce strategy. So we've got lots of stuff there that is readily accessible.
Perfect. I'll make sure I update the show notes with all of these links. It's sometimes difficult on an audio show to remember all of these.
Exactly.
But,
I think to start, listeners can start at our website because everything is accessible from there. So
yeah.
That's
Absolutely.
the best place.
Well, Robin, thanks again for coming on the show today. I massively appreciate, number one, for sharing, your obvious passion for wanting to help Shopify brands and, really helping with their integration needs and, really being a strategic partner to understand their potential legacy connections, being that, sympathetic ear to a certain degree of saying, listen, you may need an upgrade, but at the end of the day, you know what success looks like because you have so many brands that you're helping. Kudos to you and your team, and thanks again for getting on the show.
Thank you very much, Steve, for having us. As I said at the beginning, it's a great honor to be on, and happy to impart. We've always found that education forward is the most important. I think a better educated consumer is always the best one. The other thing I will leave you with is what merchants need to think about is responsibility. You own your brand, you own your site. You need to be responsible for it. And we often see a disconnect out there where people just want somebody to make it happen and they don't want to have any responsibility for it. And I think those brands are going to find as they try to scale, they will have challenges. Thank you very much for having me. It was a great conversation. Enjoyed it.
Looking to scale your e-commerce business and implement some proven strategies to grow your brand? Don't forget about our podcast sponsor, Just Uno, the leading on-site visitor conversion platform. If you're interested in optimizing your website experience with AI-powered product recommendations, intelligent personalization, and a bunch of other amazing features to help you grow and scale, head on over to justuno.com. Don't forget about the exclusive e-commerce Fastlane discount, 15% off. Use the coupon code Fastlane15. Well, that's it for today's episode. I'd like to thank you, a loyal listener of e-commerce Fastlane. It's my hope that this podcast is offering you a ton of value through growth strategies, tactics, and exclusive insider tips on the best Shopify apps and marketing platforms, all with my personal goal to help you build, launch, grow, and scale with Shopify. Thanks for investing some time today and listening to the show. I'm so proud and excited that you have a growth mindset and are a constant learner. I truly appreciate you and your entrepreneurial journey. Enjoy the rest of the week and keep thriving with Shopify.